Roger Mayweather, rest in peace. The guy was an icon in the boxing world. And yes, I believe he was right. Most people don't know a lot about boxing when you compare what he knows, what people like Floyd Mayweather know, compared to the average Joe. And today, this is an episode that I've really been wanting to make for a while, talking about what would happen if Bruce Lee fought a real kickboxer. Not necessarily myself, but maybe myself, and how I would see that fight going, plus how you can defeat people with that sort of karate, taekwondo sort of style that Bruce Lee had. And then in addition, really pointing out what Mayweather said, when most people don't know much, we're going to say, about fight sports, it's true. We're going to have so many people, the average casual person who sort of, thinks they know a lot about fighting, who will watch this episode and roll their eyes at me and go, "Oh, Gabriel, you think you could fight Bruce Lee and even stay alive? There's no way." But most people don't know much about fight sports. And when you do know a lot about fight sports, you can look at videos of somebody, you can go, "Oh, how fast are they? How hard do they hit? Let's look at their technique." And you can dissect it all and get a good feeling for how good they would actually be, even if there's somebody who has passed away, who, is not in this world anymore, unfortunately, because honestly, Bruce Lee, an icon of the martial arts world. And I'm not here to take anything away from him, but I just think this will be a fun episode to make. And if it wasn't good enough that we're just going to talk about Bruce Lee, we're going to actually talk and look at fight footage of somebody named Tony Valente, dressed in Bruce Lee apparel, fighting with a Bruce Lee style against a fairly proficient kickboxer by the name of Takayuki Coherency. This guy fought Bokau, Masato, Albert Kraus, all the top K1 Max guys, never beat them, was never one of the best in the world, but still a very good kickboxer. Let's see how this kickboxer matches up against a Bruce Lee stylist. Now, believe it or not, I've actually had people ask me, how do you think you would fare against Bruce Lee? And it's kind of one of those questions, how do you think Mike Tyson would do against Ali? How do you think Conor McGregor would do against Raymond Deckers? These are people who are outside of the same time era. They're never going to compete together, but it's fun to just kind of be creative. But at the same time, it's kind of ridiculous, because who really cares? This time has come and gone. But I'm still going to enjoy making this episode and giving my opinions on how I would do if I was fighting Bruce Lee, and the style in particular, how as a kickboxer you can go about defeating it, because many people get thrown off when somebody goes into this stance and they start bouncing around, their hands are down here, and they go, "Oh, this is a new look, I've never dealt with this, I don't know what to do." And usually people who have that style have a very few things they're exceptional at. But we're going to talk about isolating those today. Now, the very first thing that I did when people started asking me this question about Bruce Lee versus me, I went, okay, let's look at some footage. There's not much fight footage out there of Bruce Lee, but let's look at some footage of him moving, because movies are different. Movies are very different, and somebody can go into a movie, throw something really fast, who knows, maybe it's sped up, maybe it took the guy 20 takes to make it look exactly as he wanted. I just wanted some more, sort of raw footage of Bruce Lee moving around. And I found many of him from his side stance utilizing the side kick. Now, what's very funny is we've seen Bruce Lee do his 1-inch punch, where he's right here and boom, he knocks somebody back, and people go, "Whoa, this guy is so powerful. This guy can hit harder than Mike Tyson," because when Mike Tyson punches somebody, they don't go flying across the ring. But then we look at footage of Bruce Lee side kicking somebody who's actually in a proper stance, who actually has his legs based out, as opposed to the 1-inch punch guy who's taking it to the chest, who just has his legs parallel. He has no strength in his stance. He's going to get knocked backwards. Even if you take your fingers and you just go like, boop, he's going to get knocked backwards. So when we see Bruce Lee kick somebody who's in a proper stance, the guy does not move nearly as far. And when we see Tony Valente in the kickboxing fight we're going to analyze today, kick Coherency, he knocks him quite far across the ring. And I think that's just a good demonstrator of the fact that Tony Valente's kick could kind of be on par with what Bruce Lee had to offer. We're not looking at a low-level guy here, a Bruce Lee wannabe who has no skills. Tony Valente has some skills. He's super fast. We see him throw his jab. Kabang! It's there and back. Just the way Bruce Lee can get his hand from here to there, just tap, tap, and he's crazy quick. Yes, this guy can do that as well. His sidekick is on point, and his spinning sidekicks are also very dangerous. But when I look at Bruce Lee throwing his kicks, throwing his punches, I'm not going, oh my gosh, that is a dangerous, a scary looking individual. And if he kicked me, it could be game over. No, I look at him, and you guys know I love to analyze and break down all the people I compete against. I've done some, like even against Sanchez. I've looked at Sanchez because, as some of you know, I was offered a fight against Sanchez. It was for such a ridiculous low amount of money. It was for $2,000. I went, why am I going to fight the GOAT of Muay Thai for $2,000 when back then I was getting $8,000 or $10,000 for kickboxing fights? It made 0 sense. But I started looking at Sanchez and I went, ooh, this guy's good. When I broke down how am I going to defeat Lerdsila, I watched him. I went, oh, this guy's also very, very good. And there have been a number of other opponents, and in addition, potential opponents which I've scouted, who when I watched their footage, I went, okay, I've got my work cut out for me. When I look at Bruce Lee, I don't go, oh, exceptional power. I go, oh yes, his speed is quite good. His punching speed is very good, if nothing else. But speed does not really matter. Raw speed from here to there, you have to be able to apply it. And it's not as simple as people think, like, oh, he can go from here to here in, 75% of the time it takes the average other person to do it. Yeah, that's great. Let's see you apply it in a fight. So overall, when I look at the Bruce Lee footage, I'm not like, oh my gosh, this guy is a monster. He would have wrecked any kickboxer he ever fought. No. I think many high-level kickboxers who are around my skill level would actually have a very good chance of defeating somebody with Bruce Lee's skill set. Now, keep in mind, like I said, I don't want to bash Bruce Lee because he was an innovator. He was a creator, and he was not fighting my style. And if he had, perhaps he would have been a lot scarier to me in the video footage. But I'm just saying in terms of power and speed, I don't look at him and go, oh my gosh, that is ridiculous. Now let's start talking about his specific style and how you go about defeating somebody who stands in a certain way and who has few threats, which are very dangerous. So number one, when we see somebody with that raw punch speed, you're thinking, okay, if I'm standing here and they can get to here in half the time I can, I'm in so much danger. Well, how do you deal with that? Number one, you either stay extra far back. As soon as you see them twitch, you take a little step. You create that extra distance. You make it very difficult for them to fight at that ideal long length which they want. Or number two, you jam them. So you don't let them get that moment where they can go boom and pull back and stop. If they hit you, you hit them back. But you hit them with 3 or 4 shots to make sure they do not get free shots on you. They don't get to finish exchanges. Now, number two, when you have somebody who's very good, like Bruce Lee, at single shot, single kick, you very simply, as we see Cohe do in this fight, guard up. Guard up, deal with the one shot. It's very hard to land one shot and finish a fight. There are exceptional people who can do this. Conor McGregor, great example. Somebody comes in, touch, done. But most people need multiple shots to start landing. They don't get to go just one. They need 1, 2, 3, and maybe the third one lands. Maybe they go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this one doesn't land, but number 5 does. You have to throw those combinations. When you isolate single shots and you make it so it's not super dangerous, you've done a massive part of defeating people who only throw one strike at a time. Now, in addition, something that is very scary in Tony Valente and potentially in somebody with a Bruce Lee style or even Bruce Lee himself is that sidekick which he throws. We see Tony Valente, he throws body sidekick, knocks Cohe backwards. He throws a sidekick to the head, which is extra dangerous, and again, knocks him backwards. We see him execute a spinning sidekick and move Cohe backwards. But in all these cases, Cohe does the very simple thing of keeping his hands right up the middle, so he takes the kick off the forearms or the hands, and he makes sure that when he gets knocked backwards, he doesn't keep his feet stationary so he falls. He takes his back leg and he catches himself, and then from there, readjusts his stance. If you can stay on your feet, you can keep your hands right up the middle, pretty much nothing coming this direction is going to have any chance of damaging you. We've taken away the fast straight punch, the jab most likely. We've taken away side kick, spinning side kick, and side kick to the head. Now the person has to start going with rounded attacks to land anything. But many people with the Bruce Lee style of fighting who want to fight sideways, they only have the straight shots. It's very hard for me to throw an effective round kick off my lead leg. My back leg takes a whole lot of time to throw because I have to pivot my lead foot, which is pointing the wrong direction, and then off the back leg, I have spinning back fist or spinning kicks, which you have to be wary of as well. Aside from that, you are fairly safe. Now we see Cohe do a great job. If you're ever fighting somebody who takes that side stance, you do exactly what he does. You chop that leg. If I am facing this direction and my toes are pointing there, you don't want to kick here. You attack the back because there is no defense for this kick to the leg when the toes are pointing the wrong direction. That is why normally when we kickbox, we point our toes towards the front so we can either check here or here. Once I'm facing this way, there's no check for this side. So if the guy kicks, the best you can do is lift your leg, and then that leg still gets battered up in the air. Side stances are terrible for most people. We do get exceptional fighters like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson or Raymond Daniels, who can fight out of a side stance with a side kick and be very dangerous and effective. But in my opinion, these guys are kind of like 1 in a million. They are very rare. They are very good at not getting hit, and that kick is just amazing. Now, who knows? Maybe Bruce Lee was exactly one of these 1 in a million. When they got in the ring, they would be extra dangerous with that kick. But in general, when I have fought guys with this background, or when I see people with this background fighting, I go, it's not the most dangerous style if you go about competing against it the correct way. Now, to answer the question which many of you might have, Gabriel, do you think you could defeat Bruce Lee? If I, throw humility off my shoulder, I would probably just give you the straight up answer, yes. I've fought many, many dangerous people in the world, and I think under kickboxing rules, only kickboxing rules we're talking about, and keep in mind, Bruce Lee was not a kickboxer. He was somebody who took a number of styles and created his own. But under the right rule set, and watching his footage and going, working with what he had, I don't think it would be difficult to defeat this guy. Entirely different story if he was potentially around nowadays, he was training correctly, maybe he had the same technology that I had to work with, and he understood the kickboxing rule set, and he specialized in that. So I'm not saying by any means Bruce Lee is a slouch. Bruce Lee is somebody that I could wipe the floor with if we were in the same time period, but I'm saying looking at old fight footage and people going, Bruce Lee, greatest martial artist of all time, like Roger Mayweather said, most people don't know about boxing, or in this case, about fight sports. It should only take you a moment to watch some Bruce Lee footage and go, no, you know what, this guy is an amazing martial artist. He's not a real fighter. He's not somebody who's exceptionally fast in the sense it's unrealistic to block his punches. He doesn't kick exceptionally hard. It's not going to be that difficult to catch his kicks or just block with the forearms. And this is just a topic that I've wanted to cover for a while, but I was trying to find what's the right way to go about making this episode without being insulting to Bruce Lee, who is just an amazing martial artist, but at the same time, still being realistic about things. And that's what I want to do on this channel. I want to be realistic. I want to enlighten people who maybe don't know as much about martial arts as they think they do, and at the same time, just create some good controversial topics so that everybody else who's on the channel who does know lots about fight sports can have some fun watching and be entertained. So that is my thoughts, guys, on how you go about defeating somebody with the Bruce Lee style. If I think Bruce Lee would do a good job in kickboxing nowadays, if we're taking his old self, the guy who was around in the 60s and 70s, and we were to put him against a kickboxer from nowadays, how do I think he would do? Well, I think I've answered that question for you already. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like. If you have not already, join the channel and get subscribed. As always, guys, train hard and I'll see you back here soon for another episode.